Hi Greenheart community, and welcome to today's episode of Greenheart at Home. My name is Miss Allie. I'm one of the Greenheart Project's garden educators, and I'm so excited to be here with you today to learn a little bit more about bugs. So we're going to be joined by garden educator and garden coordinator, Miss Rachel, who's going to go out and explore in our garden today along with us.
Hey, thanks for joining me in the garden today, buddies. Today we are going to do some insect identification. We're going to find out if these bugs in our garden are good bugs or bad bugs.
Thanks, Miss Rachel. We're so excited to explore the garden with you today. As with any Greenheart lesson, we're going to review the 3 Greenheart rules of respect before we get started. The first rule of respect is that we're going to respect ourselves. I am going to respect myself by being careful with my body and practicing self-control today. Our second rule of respect is that we respect our Greenheart buddies. I'm going to show respect by listening when Miss Rachel's talking and by showing respect to all our little buddies out in the garden, which are our little bugs that we're going to be exploring. The third thing that we respect in Greenheart lessons is we respect the earth. As I'm out exploring the garden and as Miss Rachel's exploring the garden, you're going to see that she's practicing respect for our earth by being gentle with our plants, by not hurting the insects that are in our garden, and by being respectful of all the other animals that might be out there today. Now that we've reviewed our rules of respect, it's time to jump into our good bug, bad bug lesson. All right, buddies, let's get started. I want you to touch your nose if you've ever heard the word ecosystem. Whether you've heard this word before or not, it's important that we define this term today so that we can understand what we're talking about when we talk about the ecosystem in our garden. When we talk about an ecosystem, we are talking about the different living things that live together in our garden in harmony to help keep our garden stay healthy and alive. An ecosystem can include things like the bugs that we see in our garden, animals that we see, the plants that we're growing, and non-living things like water, rocks, or soil. All these parts of our garden play an important role in keeping it healthy. Plants provide a food source for insects, animals, and for people. Our insects play many roles, where there are ones that help to pollinate our flowers and other plants. They also are a food source for animals like birds, frogs, and lizards. And larger animals help to spread seeds, to pollinate plants, and to eat some bad bugs in our garden as well. Humans are lucky to enjoy the garden crops all because of these living things that together make up the garden ecosystem.
Now, when I say good bug, bad bug, what do I mean by that? What is a good bug and what's a bad bug?
That's a great question. All right, buddies, we're going to pause, and I want you to think about the question, what makes a good bug good and a bad bug bad? What might be something good that a bug does for a garden? And what might be a thing that's not so good that a bug could do to our garden? All right, so now that we've thought about this important question, let's look at what is a good bug and what is a bad bug. When we talk about good bugs, we're talking about bugs that aren't going to eat or damage the crops that we're growing in our garden. Good bugs will do important jobs like pollinating flowers, providing nutrients to certain crops, or creating air within our soil so that our plants can grow big and strong. In contrast, there are bugs in our garden that will try to eat the plants that we're growing or will cause serious damage to the fruits and veggies and flowers that we're trying to grow. These bugs are called pests, and we call these our bad bugs. Now that we've defined a good bug and a bad bug, let's go back to Miss Rachel, who has an important question for us.
So before we get started on our investigation, I'd like to think about what are some examples of good bugs or beneficial insects?
All right, buddies, we are going to pause so you can think about the question that Miss Rachel just asked. I want you to think about insects in our garden that help to keep our plants healthy. Maybe insects that pollinate, maybe insects that help give important nutrients to our soil. We're going to pause so you can think about this, and we'll come back together to see what you came up with. Got some ideas of good bugs? Awesome. We're going to go through a few here together so we can have an idea of what beneficial insects might be out in our garden. Bees, ladybugs, spiders, green lacewings, praying mantis, ground bug, small pirate bugs, predator flies, parasitic wasps, centipedes, earwigs, and ants are all helpful bugs that benefit our garden. Next, I want us to think of bugs that might be bad for our garden. So think about insects that might eat some of our crops or who might try to damage our plants that we're growing. Have you brainstormed a few bad bugs that we might find in our garden? Let's see if they're on our list. So some bugs that we don't want in our garden, or garden pests, are things like tomato hornworms, cabbage worms, cabbage moths, mites, slugs and snails, cutworms, flea beetles, white flies and aphids, carrot rust flies, squash vine borers, Mexican bean beetles, and parsley worms. Now that we've identified some examples of a good bug and a bad bug, it's time to see what kind of insects we have out in our garden. Miss Rachel has worked hard to explore around one of our greenheart gardens and has sent me a bunch of photos of insects that she found. It's now our job to identify whether these are a good bug or a bad bug. Are you ready? While we're exploring these good bugs and bad bugs out in our garden, now's a great time to pull out a pen or pencil and a piece of paper or journal so that we can keep track of our results. I want you to draw a T-chart like the one I've drawn here so that we can track the results that we gather as we go through the photos that Miss Rachel has shared with us today. As we go through these bugs, make sure to write them down in your T-chart so that we remember whether they're good or bad. And if you don't have a pen or pencil, that's okay too. You can still follow along as we do this activity and make a mental note of which bugs are good and which ones are bad. All right, Miss Rachel, sending it out to you in the garden to get us started on our insect hunt.
We just scoot in here. This.
All right, buddies, it looks like Miss Rachel has found insect number 1. This insect is known as an eastern black swallowtail caterpillar. This caterpillar eats many different plants in the carrot family like celery, parsley, carrots, dill, and parsnip. Given that information, do you think that this bug helps or hurts our garden? Take a second and think whether you think this is a good bug or a bad bug. Given what we've learned so far about good bugs and bad bugs, we know that good bugs do something beneficial for our garden and they help it grow big and strong. Bad bugs, on the other hand, damage our garden or hurt the crops that we're trying to grow. If this caterpillar is eating our plants, it's a bad bug. Next up, we have this orange shell, slimy looking thing that Miss Rachel found out in the garden. Anyone have a guess what it is? This is a snail. Snails enjoy eating flower buds and climbing fruit trees to eat ripe fruit. They also can strip bark from trees and chew holes in leaves. Some snails will live underground and eat the roots of plants. Given this information, do you think that a snail is a good bug or a bad bug? If this snail is eating our crops, potentially damaging leaves and or the roots of our plant, this is a bad bug. Next up, you're going to have to look carefully because this one is camouflaged, meaning it matches the color of its surroundings. If you look closely, you'll see a buzzing insect that many of us probably know. Do you know what this is? That's right, it's a honeybee. Bees collect pollen from flowers and carry it to other crops in our garden. Pollination, as this is called, is essential for flowers in order to produce more seeds. Given this information, do you think that a honeybee is a good bug or bad bug in our garden? Well, buddies, if our bee is collecting pollen and carrying it from flower to flower, which allows our flowers to produce more seeds and grow more and bigger and stronger, this honeybee is a good bug. All right, time for our next creature. Miss Rachel sent me this picture of this creepy, crawly critter that has 8 legs and oftentimes spin webs in our garden. Do you know which animal this is? That's right, buddies, it's a spider. This particular spider is called a wolf spider, and it's called a wolf spider because it's a predator and of the way it hunts in our garden. Wolf spiders eat a variety of insects and help to manage insect populations within an ecosystem. Given this information, do you think a wolf spider is a good bug or a bad bug? A wolf spider is a good bug. If this spider is eating insects and helping to manage our insect population, it'll help to control the bad bugs that we have in the garden and make sure that our plants don't get eaten by pests. All right, time for our next creature. Anyone have a guess what it is? Moths are a little tricky. Some moths may feed on leaves in your garden, while others feed on the nectar of plants. When moths are caterpillars, they can cause serious damage to plants as they often feed on many parts of the plant. Moths are a little tricky because as grown-up moths, they may not damage our garden, but as caterpillars they are. What do you think? Are they a good bug or a bad bug? Like I said, buddies, this is a little bit of a trick question because in my opinion, they're a little bit of both. Many moths, as they get older, will help to pollinate the garden and feed on nectar from our plants, while some might feed on leaves or other parts of the plant, which is not good. When moths are caterpillars, they often can cause damage to our plants, which would mean they're a bad bug, but we can't say they're one or the other because they're a little mixture of both. For the last insect that we're going to explore from the garden today, Miss Rachel sent me this picture of a very popular type of insect. Has anyone seen one of these before? Do you know what type of bug it is? That's right, it's a monarch butterfly. Monarch butterflies are a key pollinator for our gardens. Monarch butterflies pollinate many types of wildflowers and many other plants in our garden. As a fun fact, 2 of our greenheart gardens are designated monarch habitats, which means that we have planted plants and flowers that attract this pollinator to our garden. As for caterpillars, the monarch caterpillar lives on and eats milkweed. These plants are often intentionally planted in gardens to attract the monarch species. Given this information, do you think that a monarch butterfly is a good bug or a bad bug? Given the fact that monarch butterflies pollinate our garden and are super important for our flowers to grow, these butterflies are good bugs. Now that we've explored these 6 different bugs that Miss Rachel found in the garden, let's look at our T-chart that we made to see where these bugs fall. Is that what yours looks like too? It's important to remember that the 6 insects that we just explored are just the tip of a much larger ecosystem of insects that are in our gardens. I want you to write down 10 other insects, if you can think of them, that might be out in our garden. Now that you have your list of 10 insects, I challenge you to use what you learned today and try to decide whether they're good bugs or bad bugs for our garden. You should think about what these bugs do in our garden, whether they do something helpful or they do something that hurts our plants. And if you don't know, you can check out a book from the library or maybe look on the internet to do some research onto what these bugs do for our garden. Well, Greenheart Buddies, that wraps up the time that we have together today for this lesson, but I'm so grateful that we were able to spend this time together to explore some of the creepy crawly critters that are out in our gardens. I want to give a special shout out to Miss Rachel, who helped us to explore these insects and took awesome photos that we got to work with today as we explored our good bugs and bad bugs. I also want to send some green heart shine to all of you for using your brain's power today to learn alongside with me and explore the insects that we have out in our garden. I hope you all stay healthy and safe until we see you again, and we'll see you next time on our next episode of Greenheart at Home. Bye, buddies.